When most people think of Taipei, they automatically think of two things: Din Tai Fung and night markets. While Taipei's bustling food streets and the city's most famous restaurant are definitely foodie hotspots, I hope this video will show you what a diverse range of food options are available in Taipei. From super quick and cheap bites in Ximindeng shopping district, to eating at Michelin Star restaurants, eateries overlooking tea plantations, and quirky hot pot joints, I'm going to take you on a mouth-watering week-long food tour of Taipei, which has to be one of the top foodie destinations in the world. Here's my pick of the top 8 places to eat in Taipei City. Cheers! Number 1. Tien Beef Noodles. I started my Taipei trip with a visit to Tien Beef Noodles, home to the best bowl of beef noodle soup in all of Taiwan. On entering, you will see that this small roadside restaurant has been featured in many top newspapers, and they have framed their reviews with much pride on the walls. It's small inside with only 4 or 5 small tables and definitely not suitable for big groups. We grabbed a small table, ordered their specialty dish, and waited in anticipation as some delicious small side dishes of pickled cucumbers, bamboo, and smoked pig's ears were placed on our table. A few minutes later, my bowl of beef noodle soup arrived, complete with extremely thick rice noodles, chunky pieces of incredibly tender, crumbly beef, and covered with a sprinkling of spring onion. You can add a bit of hot sauce for an added kick and sit back and enjoy as the beef practically melts in your mouth as you slurp up the delicious noodles and beef broth. First of all, mix it up, mix the noodles and the beef and the soup. You can add some spicy sauce if you like this stuff. And then the trick is to eat it with the chopsticks and just use the spoon to stop anything from spilling. For just 280 Taiwan dollars, which works out at about €7, it was a real budget eat and energized me for the day ahead. The perfect start to my Taipei food adventure. For dinner on our first night, we got a group together for dinner at Golden Formosa, another Michelin Star restaurant, but this one much larger and a little bit pricier too. The setup was really fun as we were seated in a private room with a huge lazy Susan on the table in the middle, where endless dishes of meat, fish, seafood platters, tofu, vegetables, and big soup broths kept arriving. We also tried some of Taiwan's famous and very potent 58% alcohol, which both my friend Ali and I struggled with swallowing. When I say the food kept arriving, I honestly mean more and more dishes quickly filled up the table every time I looked up from my plate. It seems in Taiwan, especially if you go out for dinner with a group, almost one of everything on the menu is ordered, so you can have a taste of absolutely everything. It can seem a little overwhelming, but between the 10 of us, we actually managed to finish most of the dishes served. A fun dinner and a place I would definitely recommend if you have a group, even if it's just 3 or 4 people. For lunch on our second day, we, thankfully, didn't indulge in a huge lunch, but instead opted to go to a very beautiful traditional restaurant in Dadaocheng district called Rice and Shine. This area is known for its urban regeneration, with the government spending a lot of money to save this historic district and offering large incentives to businesses that move here and open up inside the buildings of ancient grain stores and rice markets. Think a charming red brick street with the stores hidden behind a long tunnel of arches, complete with wooden panelling, quaint shop fronts, and hanging lanterns. When it comes to the interior and the presentation of the food, Rice and Shine was definitely my favourite of them all. They have a selection of about 6 different meals where you simply pick your main course dish, and everything is served on a small wooden tray with many small side dishes included. Again, we were shown to a small private room upstairs with beautiful views out the panelled windows down to the pretty street below. I had a taste of both the pork ball and the chicken, of which I loved both, and I think if I was staying in Taipei longer, I would definitely come back here for lunch again. For dinner on our second night, we decided to mix things up and went to a very popular local hangout called Beeru Craft Beer Hall. German in style with extra long tables filling up the restaurant Oktoberfest style, with a pour your own beer taps at the end of each table. You can imagine the excitement on the face of my travel buddy Ali and I, an English girl and an Irish girl let loose in an all-you-can-drink beer bar. The food was still mainly Chinese, but with a selection of deep-fried chicken, lightly fried golden fish pieces, sweet potato fries, and a few platters of interesting-looking Taiwanese sausages. As always, there was an endless choice of dishes, and we left, no thanks to the beer, feeling very fat indeed. Dishes ranged in price from about 100 Taiwan dollars to 500 Taiwan dollars, so you can probably expect to pay the equivalent of about 20 or 30 euro per person for a decent feast. Ready? For lunch on our third day, we stopped off at Tai Fung, the most famous restaurant in all of Taipei. I couldn't believe how busy it was, with waiting times for a table up to 40 minutes. They have a cool system where you will be given a menu while in the queue, and you can order ever before you get your table. So once you're seated, your endless baskets of dumplings will be placed in front of you in no time at all. I loved how you could watch the chefs making the dumplings at lightning speed, rolling out the dough, stuffing it with whatever desired filling was ordered, then twisting the chop to seal. All done at incredible speeds. Our waitress was brilliant, very chatty and helpful, speaking fluent English and Russian, and pouring out a mix of vinegar and soy sauce for us all to dip our xiaolongbao into. My favourites ordered were the hot and spicy dumplings, the chicken dumplings, and the dessert dumplings, which were filled with melted chocolate and made me happier than I ever knew possible.
Dessert, we are having chocolate dumplings. It's literally full of chocolate. There's gonna be chocolate everywhere. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. My dad would die at this restaurant. Oh. My mouth is full of chocolate.
By the evening of day 3, it was most definitely time to check out one of the night markets, and as I have already been to Shilin night market, we decided to try out Raohe night market instead, which is basically one long street with red gates at either end and hundreds of small food stalls. Despite arriving quite early, maybe around 6:30 p.m, the market was already full of life and got even busier as the hours progressed. At one stage it was so busy I wondered if we would ever make it to the end of the street. As someone who doesn't eat seafood, and being within 20 feet of stinky tofu makes me feel nauseous, I didn't actually find too many food choices at the market. It's very fish and squid and seafood heavy, and my travel partner found it even more difficult to find even a single vegetarian dish. In the end, I had some Korean fried chicken, gigantic fries made from mashed potatoes put through a noodle maker, some local craft beer, and some pork dumplings. We also both had some juices, which were probably the highlight, and once our weary feet could walk no longer, we headed back to our hotel to sleep. On our fourth and final day in Taipei, we went up the Maokong gondola to go tea tasting and check out the beautiful tea plantations just outside the city, fully accessible by public transport using your Metro card for the bus and cable car. We found a beautiful restaurant at the top called Big Teapot Restaurant, with sweeping views of the Maokong Hills and tea plantations. Again, a feast was had, accompanied by a big pot of locally brewed tea. I especially loved the noodle dishes, the marinated pork, the sweet and sour pork ribs, and colourful bread dumplings that we had at the end of our meal. This was a fun restaurant with beautiful views, and I highly recommend if going up the Maokong gondola. For our last dinner with our group, we went to a super fun Shabu Hot Pot restaurant, the kind of place I would have been scared to enter with our Chinese speaking friends, as the outside seemed quite nondescript and the entire menu was in Chinese. That said, I highly recommend you to be brave, bring Google Translate with you, and most definitely enjoy one of the best hot pots of your life. It's especially good for solo travelers, as everyone gets their own hot pot, and you can choose what broth you want and what meat you want. And yes, they even have vegetarian options. I picked a sort of sweet sugarcane and chicken broth, beef as my meat of choice. Then the staff brings out a massive bowl of cabbage leaves, mushrooms and tofu to cook in your own private hot pot. They will start the cooking process for you, browning the meat ever so slightly. Then you sort of cook the food yourself until it's ready to eat. Such a fun experience, and the beef broth combined with thick noodles to finish up the meal was the perfect amount of food and a unique experience for our last meal. While these are my top 8 picks for food in Taipei, I have 3 more bonus options that you should try out if you have enough time. Number 9 is Shilin Night Market. Shilin Night Market is the largest night market in Taipei and in my opinion the best in all of Asia. This is where unique and quirky street food is born, and they have streets and streets and streets lined with some of the tastiest fire-roasted beef, bite-sized pork dumplings, squid on a stick, egg tofu, milk tea, bubble tea, mini pancakes, matcha balls, takoyaki, okonomiyaki, Korean fried chicken, spicy rice cakes. Honestly, you name it, they probably have it. This is a must-visit place when visiting Taipei. Number 10 is Ximindeng street food. While Ximindeng is most famous for its neon lights, oversized billboards, street entertainment, and of course endless shopping options, there's also a handful of must-visit food options in the area. Top foodie places here include the most famous bubble tea shop in Taipei, bubble waffle cones filled with ice cream, hot star chicken, Korean fried chicken, and many more delicious foodie places. Finally on my list is dessert cafes and themed cafes. While more about the interior than the food itself, if you're into crazy freak shakes, colourful desserts and neon drinks, then stopping off at one of Taipei's quirky themed cafes is a must. From colourful meals at Gudetama Chef, to strawberry cheesecake in Rilakuma Cafe, or an enormous chocolate sundae in an Alice in Wonderland themed cafe, there's no shortage of dessert cafes for those sweet-loving travellers out there. I hope you've enjoyed my guide to food in Taipei and that you found something interesting and delicious on my list. I hope you enjoy your trip, and if you like my videos, thumbs up and please subscribe.
Drink the soup. Oh, it tastes like chocolates. Wow. Oh my god. I feel like I'm back in Italy. It's like pork dumpling with chocolate. Oh my god.